Hello YouTube, this is Sam Gerrans from Qur'an.com. Today is Monday 28th of November 2016 and today the subject is chemtrails, specifically the topic of chemtrails in the Qur'an. I'm going to read a little bit from the surah or chapter in which this occurs, or which I perceive this to occur, and then I'm going to talk about it a little bit. We're looking here at chapter 44. And this, in my experience anyway, has been completely missed by the traditionalist. I don't know why exactly, so, and I may be wrong. I mean, maybe people are out there talking about this, but I certainly haven't heard anything of it. But for me, it was obvious. And so I'll just read the portion. This beginning at 44:8. There is no God save He. He gives life and He gives death. Your Lord and Lord of your fathers of old. The truth is, they are in doubt, playing. So wait thou for a day when the sky will produce obvious smoke, covering the people. This is a painful punishment. Our Lord, remove thou from us the punishment. We are believers. That's 44:8 through 12. Now, I haven't done anything weird in the translation. The translation is fairly standard. The word here for smoke is dukhan, and if you look in any translation, this will be the word used, or something very similar. When I first read this, it didn't mean anything to me, because the first time I read the Qur'an, it was prior to the mass chemtrailing of the world, and but it means a lot to me now. Now, chemtrailing, if you don't know what this is, just look in the sky. You will see that aeroplanes are creating huge patterns in the sky of smoke, and this verse has been evidently fulfilled. Now, whether this is the final fulfillment, I really can't say, but the fact is that we have obvious smoke in the sky, and this is the result of a pan-governmental trans-world policy of putting something in the sky. Now, I know this hasn't been on mainstream media, but I hope that most of the people who listen to this channel understand that that's just sort of part of the problem. If you don't know what chemtrails are, look them up. And if you cannot engage with what you see in the sky above you, then I'm afraid nothing I can say is really going to help you. But to those who are able to deal with the evidence in front of their faces, the stuff in the sky is not made by planes. I'm old enough to have witnessed personally the 1970s and the 1980s. And these things did not exist. Jet engines certainly existed, but these things didn't. So this is new, this is obvious, this is a covert program of some kind. Now, it's not my focus on this channel to get into these things. If you've got an index finger and an internet connection, which I assume anyone listening to this has, if you don't know about this, go and find out. So you can do that somewhere else. I will, however, quickly summarize current thinking on chemtrails. If you do the research, they are said to be filled with various heavy metals, and to work in combination with such things as HAARP. I've traveled all over the world, and every country that I've been to, almost without exception, has had chemtrailing. Russia, Mongolia, Slovakia, North Africa, you name it, everywhere. It's everywhere. And these aeroplanes, they don't stop. They don't stop at a border. They don't go from, through Poland to Russia and then suddenly turn around. No, they carry on right across Russia. So for me, it's, well, I'll get into this in a minute, because this is a part of why this is interesting from a Quranic point of view. Again, the thinking out there, and of course we understand there's a lot of misinformation, etc., but I think that it's fair to assume that these have more than one application. part of the narrative, the sort of New World Order narrative is about this thing called global warming, or they changed it, didn't they, to climate change. This is an invention. It's just a justification for imposing a communitarian tyranny upon the people. But they're using the language of ecology in order to bring about this sort of consumer-friendly form of communism. And what's interesting is that it appears that this layer of smoke, which they are laying down across the skies quite clearly, may also have some application for things like Project Bluebeam. I do recommend looking that up if you haven't. It seems that the narrative is going to be, apart from obviously crashing the economy and the huge movement of people, so that people have got no indigenous cultural narrative to bind them together. They're atomizing people, and they're creating this is a social engineering project that quite clearly we're living through. This is a business plan. It seems that the chemtrail part of this is that it is going to be used to, and is being used to, control weather. It's also going to possibly be used as part of this, as I say, this Project Bluebeam, which is a means of projecting real-looking pictures onto the sky. And if you've not come across this before, I recommend going out and doing some research on this, because for me these are these are assumptions. I mean, these are things that I've known for so long now that I these aren't something that I have to kind of go out and verify. I've done my work on this, and if you haven't, don't please come to me and ask me to do it for you or to answer you point by point, because I'm not going to, because I'm too busy. Go out there and do your research, and if you think it's all nonsense, fine, have a nice life. But for me, I can see what's going on above me in the skies. I don't need CNN or any other Rothschild-controlled news agency to tell me what I can already see. So it looks like this is part of a pan-national, pan-world policy of driving the sheep into the next sheep pen. And I think it's going to be this combination of things where this so-called global warming, obviously they can control weather, they're increasing fear, but I do think also they're going to play the alien invasion card. And there's some great stuff out there, a lot of it by Christians, quite frankly, who get it, that this alien thing is just complete nonsense. This is really demonic, and it is demonic. But I'm going to leave all those things to one side right now and just concentrate on the chemtrail aspect of this vis-a-vis the Qur'an. So the first thing that I want to say is that it's very clear that when you look into the sky, that these things are just trawling up and down, up and down, up and down, and that they respect no national boundary. So we're already living in a one world government. And my point is really that you can concentrate perhaps on the fact that there's smoke in the sky, and this is perhaps a sign of the end. But to me, what is as interesting is what goes along with this. And I'm going to go through these verses again. So verse 8, there is no God save He. He gives life and He gives death. Your Lord and the Lord of your fathers of old. Now, from our perspective, it's you hear people talking, for example, about in Bible days, or we're in Bible days. The Lord described in the Qur'an is the Lord of our fathers of old, certainly, but He is the Lord of now as well. This, God didn't stop being God just because modernity happened. To continue, verse 9, the truth is they are in doubt playing. Now, I'm sure this has always been the case, but it's almost fantastically the case at this present time. Pretend cynicism or skepticism, perhaps, is in vogue, and it isn't real skepticism. I mean, real skepticism is great, but it's a refusal ever to acknowledge evidence, even though it's in front of your face. And I do think that chemtrails are almost dispersonified. You can point at these things. Somebody, they've made a checkerboard in the sky, and you can say, what do you think that is? And people will deny the evidence of their own eyes while they're locked into their silly games and playing their iPhones as they walk up and down the street. In fact, they are in doubt playing. Verse 10, so wait thou for a day when the sky will produce obvious smoke. Well, it is smoke, dukhan, and it is obvious in Arabic, mubin. So, whilst I cannot claim that this is the final manifestation of this or result of this particular verse, it is true that we have in the sky smoke, and it is obvious. To continue, covering the people. Well, it certainly does cover the people. The people of the world. We are covered by this. And to kind of continue my point about governments, they must be all working together. So any pretense at enmity, Americans against the Russians and the Russians against the Americans and the Chinese, this is nonsense, because the same planes are going over all of these countries and spraying the people like bugs. This is a painful punishment. Now, I don't know whether the full import of this verse has been felt by the world yet, but I do know that whatever these things are churning out is not good. It does seem that it's heavy metals, and we are being attacked in a multi-front war. It's in the vaccines, the food, the air, the Wi-Fi, the economy. The whole thing is either fake or actually malevolent. But it doesn't, when you're in the West, I mean, there are obviously heavy wars as well, hard wars, but this is a soft war, silent weapons that are attacking you on many fronts. Whether it's what's in the tins of the food, etc., etc. The whole thing is designed to defeat your immune system, your natural desires, your natural, what the Qur'an calls fitra, your inbuilt human state. This whole system is designed to contravene that. Now, it's the next verse that I find very interesting. Verse 12, O Lord, remove thou from us the punishment. We are believers. The way this is often read, it's read almost as though now people are calling out, repenting because of this terrible thing which is in the sky. I'm suggesting an alternative reading to this, and this is a suggestion, you can take it or leave it, but my insight or perception is that, and this is based on my own experience, is that in a way these chemtrails are assigned to us, believers, because every time I see them, I know that I'm doing the right thing with my life. I know that everything that nearly everybody else that I see is working for is based on a fallacy. And that fallacy is that somehow that their vote matters, their opinion matters, that government is there to help them, that this system is somehow designed, that there's fairness baked into the cake of this system. They believe in this cult, and it is a cult, the cult of democratic modernity. But every time you look in the sky, you can see what a lie that whole thing is, because at the top level, they've agreed. And it doesn't matter where you think, your help is coming from. The fact is that their only security, as the Qur'an says, is in communication of God and his messages. That's it. There is no other. And the sky bears witness to this every day. No matter what else I am going through, whenever I look up and see this aberration, in the sky, I know that I'm doing the right thing. And actually it's true with anything that the so-called elite does. On the one hand, yes, it is an evil, terrible thing, but if you have eyes to see, it's a confirmation that there is nothing else worth doing, no one else worth serving than God Almighty. It's just obvious. But as the surah continues going on, verse 13 says, "How will the reminder be for them when a clear messenger had come to them? Then turned they away from him and said, 'One taught, possessed.'" Now, my position is that we believers, our job is to warn the elite. Now, I get into that in different videos, and I'm very busy at the moment, but in the next month, a major chunk of work is going to be cleared, and we can move on to the next stage. But this is the model, ladies and gentlemen, and please do look at the rest of my work for more of that. What's interesting also is as the surah continues, it goes into the story of Fir'aun and Moses going to Fir'aun. And this, I believe, is again the model. A man of God goes to the elite, warns the elite, and then the elite are destroyed. However, the people of God are preserved. And I think that the story of Fir'aun with Musa, it's an archetype, and these are models that we are called to replicate, not follow religions. I mean, if you want to follow religion, knock yourself out. I really don't care. But this isn't what the Qur'an's talking about, and there is no religion in the Qur'an. You may look, but you won't find it. What it does have is templates. It has examples, and the example of Musa is of warning the elite of his time, and of that elite being utterly destroyed. However, the people of God were preserved. I just wanted to make this point as a sort of summary of my own reflections on the question of the chemtrails. If you haven't looked into chemtrails, I recommend that you do. And if you are able to look into the sky or at the sky and see these lines going up and down and not have any questions, then I would suggest that you really need to take quite a look at yourself in the mirror and ask, what happened to you? The Qur'an tells us that the eyes and the intellect, they will be questioned. Don't wait for mass media, government, me, anyone to tell you to use your brain. Use it now, because you will be responsible for it. As a quick aside, I'd just like to say that for myself personally, one of the best things that ever happened to me was the time that I spent in Russia. I lived in Russia for over 15 years. Is because in Russia, nobody trusts the government. It's not a question. It's not like when you're in the West where you have tentatively suggest that perhaps the government doesn't have your best interests at heart. In Russia, if you were to suggest anything other than that, people just fall about laughing. The level of reality, real politic in the Russian society was so refreshing to me, having come from the sort of Teletubby Western model. I don't think that we should all be terrified. It doesn't matter what the elite, so-called, do. We're all going to the judgment. There is no escape. They plan, God plans. God is the best of planners. And that's the truth. So I'm not counselling, worrying about the elite. They should worry. They've got eternal hell coming. But we have a job to do. And all I'm saying is look at the evidence around you. And the sky, it's undeniable what's going on in the sky. So that's chapter 44, verses 8 through 12. And look up chemtrails if you haven't before. That's all for now. If you're listening on YouTube, you can download my full translation of the Qur'an free using the button in the top right-hand corner, or buy the hardback there at 10% less than on Amazon. I also encourage you to sign up for the Qur'anite Plus newsletter on the site to get occasional micro updates. Check my site at skypetalking.com for lessons and more. Like if you like, comment if you have something constructive to say, and subscribe to get more each week. And use the link in the drop down below to donate if you would like to help me keep doing this. And remember, this life is short, eternity is long. If you want good trees, plant good seeds.